The British Queen's health deteriorates as doctors put her under medical supervision. Prince Charles, Prince William, Camilla at Balmoral Castle by the side of the Queen. Day 2 of Bharat Jodo Yatra. Congress goes on war footing, says will emerge in a more aggressive avatar after the Yatra. Rahul Gandhi says the protest will awaken India to the BJP's divisive politics. Mamata Banerjee makes a big declaration, says she will come together with Nitish Kumar and Hemant Soren to fight against Modi's government in 2024 as part of an opposition alliance. After 2 years of dialogue, India and China disengage at Ladakh's Gogra hot springs. Massive step forward to end the ongoing standoff since May 2020. India Today campaign impact in Bengaluru. Bulldozers raise illegal encroachments responsible for floods in the city. Politics erupts after 93 Mumbai blast. Convict Yaqub Memon's tomb is beautified. BJP slams former Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray over the marbles and lights on Yaqub's tomb. Shack where Sonali Phogat was drugged could be demolished in Goa. National Green Tribunal upholds order asking for curlies to be raised down. Spanish teenager creates a sensation at US Open. 19-year-old Carlos Alcaraz enters semis by winning after coming dangerously close to a defeat in the previous set. Could become the youngest ever world number one. But our top story of the day. It is a day when the country has seen a new central vista, the heart of the national capital, being illuminated on a day when India, according to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has shed some of its colonial baggage. This will be India's new power corridor, a new parliament building, a common central secretariat, and a revamped 3-kilometer long stretch, which was always known as Rajpath, but will now be called officially at least as Kartavya Path, from the Rashtrapati Bhavan all the way to India Gate. Central Vista 2.0, inauguration of the Kartavya Path that saw the unveiling of a grand 28-foot granite statue of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. The government has labelled it an attempt to shed all traces of colonial India. But is this an attempt to set forth a new political narrative, or is this a genuine attempt to find a new way of shedding our colonial baggage? Before we go ahead with that big question, listen in to what Prime Minister Modi had to say as he inaugurated Kartavya Path.
जब नेताजी
आजादी के 75 वर्ष पूरे होने पर देश ने अपने लिए पंच प्राणों का विजन रखा है। इन पंच प्राणों में विकास के बड़े लक्ष्यों का संकल्प है, कर्तव्यों की प्रेरणा है, इसमें गुलामी की मानसिकता के त्याग का आह्वान है, अपनी विरासत पर गर्व का बोध है। आज भारत के आदर्श अपने हैं, आयाम अपने हैं, आज भारत के संकल्प अपने हैं, लक्ष्य अपने हैं, आज हमारे पथ अपने हैं, हमारे प्रतीक अपने हैं। और साथियों, आज अगर राजपथ का अस्तित्व समाप्त होकर कर्तव्य पथ बना है, आज अगर जॉर्ज पंचम की मूर्ति के निशान को हटाकर नेताजी की मूर्ति लगी है, तो ये गुलामी की मानसिकता के परित्याग का पहला उदाहरण नहीं है। ये न शुरुआत है न अंत है। ये मन और मानस की आजादी का लक्ष्य हासिल करने तक निरंतर चलने वाली संकल्प यात्रा है। अंडमान के वो द्वीप जिसे नेताजी ने सबसे पहले आजादी दिलाई थी, वो भी कुछ समय पहले तक गुलामी की निशानियों को ढोने के लिए मजबूर थे। आजाद भारत में भी उन द्वीपों के नाम अंग्रेजी शासकों के नाम पर थे। हमने गुलामी की उन निशानियों को मिटाकर इन द्वीपों को नेताजी सुभाष से जोड़कर भारतीय नाम दिए, भारतीय पहचान दी। कर्तव्य पथ केवल ईंट पत्थरों का रास्ता भर नहीं है, ये भारत के लोकतांत्रिक अतीत और सर्वकालिक आदर्शों का जीवंत मार्ग है। यहां जब देश के लोग आएंगे, वो नेताजी की प्रतिमा, नेशनल वॉर मेमोरियल, ये सब उन्हें कितनी बड़ी प्रेरणा देंगे। उन्हें कर्तव्य बोध से ओतप्रोत करेंगे। इसी स्थान पर देश की सरकार काम कर रही है। आप कल्पना करिए, देश ने जिन्हें जनता की सेवा का दायित्व सौंपा हो, उन्हें राजपथ जनता का सेवक होने का एहसास कैसे कराता। अगर पथ ही राजपथ हो तो यात्रा लोकमुखी कैसे होगी। राजपथ ब्रिटिश राज के लिए था, जिनके लिए भारत के लोग गुलाम थे। राजपथ की भावना भी गुलामी का प्रतीक थी, उसकी संरचना भी गुलामी का प्रतीक थी। आज इसका आर्किटेक्चर भी बदला है और उसकी आत्मा भी बदली है।
So the Prime Minister today claiming that a vestige of colonialism has been removed with the renaming of Rajpath as Kartavya Path, that we have in a way recognized our great freedom heroes with Netaji there at India Gate in statue form. But questions remain. Is the centre really shedding colonial legacy here, or is the government simply playing politics over renaming? Is this misplaced priorities or the building of a new India, as the Prime Minister claimed? Joining me now, special guest General V.P. Malik, former Army Chief, joins me. Swapan Dasgupta of the BJP, its former Rajya Sabha MP. Ajoy Kumar, Congress's spokesperson. And Mridula Mukherjee, historian who's been a critic, if I may say so, of the Modi government. Let me come to you first, Swapan Dasgupta, because the Prime Minister says that Rajpath symbolized colonialism. Now, there will be those who will say that is a name change enough to suggest that we've suddenly shed our colonial baggage? Is this simply tokenism? How do you respond?
Look, Rajdeep, firstly, it's much more than a name change. Name change is only an aspect, a small aspect of this entire exercise. Firstly, you had, and I think which is at the centerpiece of this whole exercise, was that for a very long time there was an impasse over what George V, who existed right till 1965 in that canopy behind India Gate, who will that be replaced by? And I think there was a decisive moment in which a decision was taken to put Subhash Chandra Bose, who was unrelenting in his quest for freedom, uncompromising and unrelenting. So that was the first thing. Mm-hmm. Secondly, there was, in my view, an attempt to make this entire Vista, and this, remember, is only a part of the entire redesigning which is going on. Mm-hmm. This, to make it more popular, more people-friendly, more user-friendly, and more attractive. There was, if you recall, when Lutyens designed it, when Lutyens created a plan, this plan was, because of the economies of the war, left largely incomplete and half done. So today what we've done is that you've improved upon the facilities, you've made a very attractive place which can be used by people. Now, I have a small example of this, is that the amount of facilities, for instance, toilets, they didn't exist in that entire stretch. Mm-hmm. There were all these carnage spread about how many trees were going to be cut, and I think anybody who's gone there will now notice that this was based on a tissue of lies. There's been an evening of it. There's been a granite pathway which is there, anti-slip thing done about it. And I think what we've really got now is something which is much more accessible to the people. And finally, the question of the Kartavya Path. Why was the name of the Rajpath changed? Now, you may question whether Kartavya Path is the most appropriate name or not. But the shedding of the imperial legacy, to my mind, required a certain degree of symbolism. And I think at least two major aspects of that symbolism is there. But as Modi pointed out in his speech, this is a constant and ongoing process, the process of mental decolonization, which is going on. And more than decolonization, it's an attempt to find an Indian identity. And this is an ongoing quest. And I think this Central Vista project is highly symbolic. It doesn't transform society totally. But it's through symbolisms like this, on the 75th year of Indian independence, that we begin the process of actually redefining India, moving after 75 years to a new stage where a more self-confident Indian India actually comes into being.
Before I bring in my other guests, I just want to press you. You said this will represent an Indian identity. Do you really believe, Swapan Dasgupta, that Rajpath as it existed, and I had the unique distinction of marching on it, I can tell you as a young NCC cadet in 1978, represented a colonial India? Do you really believe that? Or do you believe that that's also a bit of an exaggeration to suggest that Rajpath represented colonialism?
No, if you really look at it that way, Lutyens itself was a colonial relic. I mean, after all, the New Delhi itself was made by the British. That at least the foundations, the basic, the skeletal architecture of New Delhi has been created by Lutyens. And that to that extent, there is a part of that legacy which is always there. And it will always be there, because even if South Block and North Block are transformed into museums, the point is those were things. And the Viceregal Lodge is now going on, has been called the Rashtrapati Bhavan. So there are these aspects. But the point is, what do we do with that inheritance? And whether we blindly emulate, whether we just continue with that inheritance totally, or whether we reshape it according to our tastes, our requirements, and our new mentality. Okay. So as I said, this is merely a quest. This is only a part of the journey which is there. That for a person to flag decolonization, to flag mental servitude, to flag the fact that we need independence in a mental and in an intellectual sort of way, from the Prime Minister to flag this, I think marks an important step. So let's not overstate the case, but let's not undermine it.
Okay.
This is a step.
Okay, you believe it's a small step forward, or a step forward in ending mental servitude. General Malik, you want to respond as a proud army chief? Do you believe this is to be seen in that sense as a step forward to end mental servitude? I want an honest answer. All these years when you would be there at Rajpath, did you feel that it was a symbol of servitude and slavery?
Good evening, Rajdeep. I think before I say anything else and comment on what Swapan Dasgupta has said, I'd like to mention the definition of nationalism as given by Ernest Renan long ago. And what he said was a people's sense of collective destiny through a common past and their vision of a common future. That was a definition given by Ernest Renan long ago. And I believe that continues. While symbolism is important, no doubt about it, so are the traditions and so are the honors that you win. The history doesn't change. Now, in one way, we are different. The armed forces are different because ours is a blood-stained history. We have fought wars, and those traditions and the gallantry awards, they become important to us, not only important for military history point of view, but also to inspire us, to motivate us to continue fighting for whoever is the then, particularly these days when we are talking about our own nation.
Yes.
So for us, these are very important, and
but you already have a war memorial, sir.
Now you cannot remove India Gate, for example.
But you already have a war memorial now, General Malik. You already have a war memorial now. You already have a war memorial that is dedicated in a way to our armed forces. I'm suggesting, do you believe that the change in name from Rajpath to Kartavya Path really sees a sort of new India? Do you really see it as a symbol of new India?
Well, it is part of symbolism. It is an important symbolism. If it reminds you of a colonial past, and you get rid of it, there is nothing wrong. It's a correct symbol today when we are talking of our own nation, independent nation.
Okay.
We are no longer talking of, we are no longer a colony, and therefore this change is nothing wrong with that. I think it is appropriate.
Okay, you believe it's appropriate. Mridula Mukherjee, as a critic of this government, do you believe that the government is simply using history in a way, using Netaji, using a name change to gloss over certain other issues that may be relevant?
Thank you, Rajdeep, for labeling me first.
You have been a critic of the
letting
government.
people know in advance what you expect from me. I'm not running away from that. I couldn't, even if I wanted to. But to come to the substantive point, let me just share with you a thought that came to me when you were asking General Malik about traditions and colonial traditions. What would he say if in the army there was a proposal to change the names of the regiments? After all, this army was a British army, and it transitioned then into an independent Indian army without any problems. And their nationalism is not in question because they haven't changed the names of the regiments. Or I could talk about many other traditions which are so British, so colonial, which the army happily continues and would be loath to change. But what is important is the substance. I think that's the point I want to come to. And for anybody to suggest today, 75 years after independence, we are beginning the process of decolonization. I'm sorry, as a historian, as an Indian, as somebody who's grown up in independent India, born after independence, grown up in this Delhi, where I saw the name change from Kingsway to Rajpath, from Queensway to Janpath. The decolonization process in various ways has continued. And decolonization is about changing your economy, making an independent economy. I could...
No, but aren't symbols important, ma'am? Aren't symbols important? If I change Kingsway to Rajpath today, I change it to Kartavya Path, it's part of a, the government will say it's part of a continuum. I'm looking in a way for new symbols to, in a way, reflect a new India. An India where most Indians are born well after 1947.
Rajdeep, the change from Rajpath to Kartavya Path is not decolonization. The change from Kingsway to Rajpath was decolonization. Now, you can argue here, we don't want this particular road or avenue to denote the state, and you want to denote duty, but that is not decolonization. So I'm saying, first and all, it's like selling an idea and then going on and on about it, and by the evening, everybody begins to believe that this change of name is decolonization. You may, let's first question that very concept. You may say that the Rajapath, it is not Rajapath, it is Rajpath, state road, and Janpath, which cuts across it, is the road of the people. So it is meant to be actually the interaction between the state and the people. Now that's my interpretation which I'm giving you, which I thought all these years was true. You can give a different interpretation, but it doesn't become decolonization.
Okay, let's be
very clear about.
That's a very interesting way you believe there is nothing decolonizing about changing a name. In a sense, you believe the real decolonization began when Kingsway became Rajpath. Contentious, but I'll come to that in a moment. Ajay Kumar.
From Rajpath, an Indian name, to change to Kartavya Path is decolonization. You can say you want democratization.
Okay.
At least I can sell it better.
Okay, let me quickly get Swapan Dasgupta, because I think he needs to respond to that, and then I'll come to you, Ajay. Swapan Dasgupta, you want to respond? This is not decolonization. In fact, if I may say so, is the fact that the real way of Kartavya Path is to ensure our netas ensure their Kartavya, their duties. They continue with their VVIP privileges. They continue with these large convoys, which actually the British Prime Minister doesn't have.
I think Mridula Mukherjee may have a point in when she says that, democratization may be a good way to sell it. Yes, that could be an added attribute to the whole thing. That there's nothing per se wrong in accepting that contention. But the larger issue really is that you've chosen this project And you want to flag off this process that you want to get rid of mental servitude, which has been dogging us for a very, very long time. Now the question is...
No, but where is the Swapan, sorry to intervene. Sorry, Swapan, just a minute, Mridula ji. Where is the mental servitude is the point I raise. I mean, the fact is
mental servitude is there. Look at it this way. That till 1965, you had King George V very much hovering around, looming over the...
So you've removed that.
So it is not the case that in 1947 we did this remarkable step. Number two.
So Indira Gandhi did it in 68.
We have kept a large section of the army traditions. If you recall, that Prime Minister Modi was perhaps the only Prime Minister who actually paid homage as a Prime Minister to those Indians who fell in World War I in Flanders. He actually went there. And therefore, there is a certain continuum which is also there, which has kept up the traditions of the Indian Army. So there are these aspects. So the question of decolonization is not a surgical strike. It is not a surgical strike. It is how you bring out the best in the Indian traditions and highlight it.
Okay.
Now, you may think that this is only a small step in this. I'm not going to argue with that in any case with that, because this is an ongoing process. This is an ongoing process. But it's very, very important that if it is flagged as an aspect of state policy, if it is an aspect of political priority, and I think that that's important to say, that politically it's now been highlighted that this is something we need to evolve an Indian idiom.
Okay,
and this is in the 75th year. We need to say that we are doing various things and helping in that process to get round.
Okay.
And this is not something which is going to happen overnight. This is a long, drawn-out, cumbersome exercise which will have its ups and downs. But the important thing is, what is your aspiration?
Yeah, well,
I think both Subhash Chandra Bose's statue, the public, the opening up, the democratization of the space which is there along the central vista, as well as the Kartavya path, is also part of it. And I think when the Parliament buildings come up and the other buildings come up, it will also add to that.
Yes, you want to... General Malik, I'll come to you in a moment. Yes, Mridula.
I would like to know, give me one example of what has happened today, or even in what is being planned in terms, or the bigger Parliament coming up and all that. How is anything being made more Indian? I've not got it. I'm sorry. Planting more trees, they were already there. How is it more Indian? Can Swapan enlighten me on what is all that I saw about? I may agree or disagree. More toilets, better paths, stone instead of gravel. I mean, how is it more Indian? Can you tell me how we get a more Indian identity?
Yes, because
by this. I felt very Indian even before. Rajpath and Kartavya, but the difference is not between Indian and
it is
British.
It's one by larger endeavor. It is part of the larger endeavor to redefine India, to actually move a step ahead. That we have not stagnated. It's not merely renaming Herbert Baker's circular building, which is a beautiful building, incidentally. And we've seen pictures of it, Victoria, etc.
1 minute, Ajay, one by one.
You want to get on to the move.
Okay, Mridula, Swapan.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that the blind hatred towards Prime Minister Modi is actually blinding you and various people to the fact that this is a monument.
No, Ajay, you've got to wait, please.
Which is happening in India.
Okay, you're saying it's driven by blind hatred. Those who are opposing the Central Vista are driven by blind hatred of Mr. Modi.
The carnage which was spread before the project came out. Everything is going to be cut off, this, that, and the other, destruction. It's going to be vulgar, it's aesthetically displeasing, etc.
The jury is still out on exactly how they see the project.
No, jury maybe, you see.
But let Ajay Kumar respond. No, Swapan Dasgupta, only fair to let Ajay Kumar respond to what you said. Ajay Kumar, Swapan Dasgupta makes the point that it is only the blind hatred of Prime Minister Modi that makes the opposition see the Central Vista as a personal project in a way of Prime Minister. The Prime Minister imposing his legacy and in the name of decolonization.
Look, the first question is, as usual, another event management to divert the country for another few days from the main issues. Look, you have Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's statue. What did Netaji say? Religious fanaticism is the greatest thorn in the path of cultural intimacy, and there is no better remedy for fanaticism than secular and scientific education. Okay, this is what, so now they want to appropriate Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose as a statue, but never believe in what he said. He said that the greatest enemy of this country are the right-wingers. He said Nehru was one of the greatest patriots. So, shamelessly rewriting history. First question, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. First point number one, you want to highlight Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, highlight his thoughts, highlight the beliefs he had. But the right-wingers will not highlight what Sardar Patel had believed in. As usual, appropriating history, 2 Congress presidents, they want to, and we are happy there are 2 Congress presidents. But my issue, Rajdeep, is what is this Kartavya Path and democratization of the space? The poorest of this country was sitting and having ice creams on that Rajpath for so many years. But Swapan Dasgupta suddenly sees this democratization of that space. You and me and children have been having ice creams for ages. You know, there has been people who have been walking on the lawns. People come from all over India, all over Delhi and have it. And suddenly, because you called it Kartavya Path. Third point, which is very interesting, colonization. The other day, the Prime Minister said we have beaten the British economy, we have become larger. Through, again, event management, we are 144th per capita income. So my question to you is, this program was made, okay, during the peak of COVID time. And the Prime Minister has got parallels. Hitler destroyed the old German chancellery and made a new one. So my question again is, no, you need to listen to, because you gave a lot of time to Swapan Dasgupta, so you'll have to bear with me for a few more minutes. The question again is very simple. Every 3 days, there's a topic of diversion. Now 5 days, you'll go on Kartavya Path. We have, no, one sec, let me complete, my friend. You did, yeah, so okay. So my question is very simple. Is it democratization of the space? The biggest nonsense. General Malik was saying that, is it a good symbol? Again, the biggest nonsense. If it is Kartavya Path, then you should have an ED Path, CBI Path, Berozgari Path, Mangai Path. The question again is, what is these guys have done in any work? No.
You're saying, no, sir, the larger point you're making, which needs to be answered, you say it's a diversion, it's event management.
My friend, no, he has to answer a few more questions. You gave me so less time, so you also please listen. My question is very simple. Today, the Bharatiya Janata Party let us 1/50th in press freedom by colonial, getting rid of colonial vestige, 144th in Human Development Index, 87th in the passport, highest number of malnourished children in the world since Modi came, the highest number of unemployment in the world since Modi came. So my question again is, what Kartavya? What is this? And like
now, Ajoy Kumar, you've asked several questions. No, I will now. You've asked these questions. You've asked them strongly. You have every right. I've given you time, 3 minutes uninterrupted.
Suddenly says, why 1965?
Okay, let's Swapan Dasgupta, and then I'll go to General Malik. Swapan Dasgupta, is this a diversion? Is this event management? This is part of the government's attempt to create a spectacle around it.
Rajdeep, everything is called an event management. No doubt there is an element of the spectacle which is involved in this. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Because after all, we are commemorating and celebrating the 75th year of independence. And this is a very, very momentous occasion for us. And therefore, there will be various events all over the country, which in some way or the other highlights these our evolution as a country, as a republic. Republic happened 3 years later. But anyway, as a country, in the 75 years when we regained national sovereignty. Now the question arises, should all this be left unsung? Should the 75th year of independence be devoted to having the same political rhetoric? And Mr. Ajay Kumar is completely entitled to have these debates, about whether the COVID approach was right or wrong. I mean, I personally think COVID was one of the management of COVID was one of the spectacular successes of Indian policy. But he may have another point of view. Fair enough. And I think there's a space for having those discussions. But when a national occasion like this happens, there has to be an element of the spectacle. And I think there is nothing wrong in it. What historians would call ornamentalism is really part of
and you don't see it, 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 and you don't see it as appropriation of Netaji's legacy, right? You don't see this. You don't see this as trying to appropriate Netaji's legacy.
Netaji does not belong to Netaji's family alone. Sardar Patel does not belong only to the narrowest of the Indian national. These are national icons. Okay. Just as to my mind, Jawaharlal Nehru too is a national icon. We may agree on certain facets of his thing, but you cannot talk about Indian independence without talking about his tryst with destiny.
Swapan Dasgupta, listening to you today is to see that, it's great to have some bipartisan spirit on this critical issues, which is the way it should be. Which is the way it should be. No, it's good. I think these occasions should reflect a bipartisan spirit, but General Malik, you've been waiting.
These are icons. These are national icons.
Right. General Malik.
Honor them appropriately. I think it is very churlish.
Rajdeep, when we talk of a vision of a common future, apparently what the Prime Minister is attempting is decolonization of the mindset. The colonial mindset he is talking of, getting rid of it. I know that as far as that doesn't change the history, and he has never objected to the armed forces history, whether it was pre-British days or during British days also. If you recall, some years ago, there was an exhibition of First World War, and he himself attended that, and he appreciated that what was done there. In fact, he wanted it to be continued for some more time. The other thing I must say, as far as the armed forces are concerned, now our traditions and our traditions, they continue not only during the British time, even earlier than. We keep quoting Mahabharata, we keep quoting the quotes from Bhagavad Gita, all that, we keep quoting Guru Gobind Singh. So those are also part of our history and traditions, and we continue to maintain that.
But so for example,
the army is not changing of the history,
right?
But of course, decolonizing our mindset so that we have now a common future. That is what we are dreaming of.
But General Malik, I recall just 2 days ago, you responded to a tweet I put out about how VVIP convoys were going in this large VVIP convoys were causing considerable discomfort to citizens. And you responded to that by saying, look, it's a terrible thing, these large convoys, most democracies don't have them. So at one level, you're asking us, the citizens, to have our duties as Kartavya Path. What about the Kartavya of our politicians? I mean, you replace the British Raj with a new Raj. All that has happened is the British Raj has been replaced with a new Raj.
I continue to maintain that our rulers should not, our netas should not behave like the kings of the old days, as if they were, they are trying to follow the colonial customs, whether it is Raj Bhavan or outside with all those cavalcades. That is not decolonizing your mind. In fact,
that is exactly, sir, that is my point. General Malik, no, just a minute, Ajay Kumar. General Malik, that is my point, that the fact is the real decolonization takes place when your mindsets change. Not by changing names, not by saying that, look, I've changed the Central Vista.
Why don't you say that you don't want to...
That is important, of course. That is important. I mean, the leaders, their mindset has to be corrected first if they are following the old colonial tradition. Right. Now, in Raj Bhavan, if you go, I still find it's like the royalty of UK. That kind of a thing, even today, they are following many of those customs.
Exactly.
With the kind of waiters and the kind of custom that they have. Similarly, having a very large cavalcade to travel, that is not on. I mean, that is not democracy at all.
Okay, Ajay Kumar, respond.
That is not the kind of future we want.
So, Rajdeep, educate me, Swapan, also. I mean, Swapan, I appreciate on what you said on Pandit Nehru. But the question again is, 8,000 crore aircraft is Kartavya Path. 500 crores residents is Kartavya Path. My question again is, what are we doing? 500 crores is the Prime Minister's residence, 8,000 crores is his plane, and you are saying Kartavya? I mean, it's becoming a joke. What Kartavya is this, sir? 8,000 crore aircraft, 11 crore car, 400 crore house, and you're doing a lot of Kartavya. And General Malik is saying about entitlement. Very easy for Prime Minister to say about entitlement. But when you represent the biggest entitlement, you reconstruct the whole new house for the Prime Minister. You construct the whole new aircraft, which cost you a handsome sum of 8,000 crores, and then you go preaching to the choir about preaching to the people of India about Kartavya, and then make the Rashtrapati Bhavan into a public museum. Get the Rashtrapati to move out of it. Don't give bhashans, no.
Good. That's
why you have the Rashtrapati. So the question again is, ye natak hai, event management, 7-day show, Bharat Jodo is going on, distract. Berozgari out of chapter, Mehengai out of chapter, distract.
Okay. You've said, should Rashtrapati Bhavan, Mridula Mukherjee, also be made into a museum?
Absolutely. I think I would be very happy, not only Rashtrapati Bhavan, but North Block and South Block, which also have beautiful architecture, beautiful ceiling paintings inside. In fact, I would suggest that if you really want to convince us that you want to decolonize, get out of Lutyens Delhi. You don't like it anyway. You call them Lutyens crowd and whatnot. So why doesn't the government of India get out of Lutyens Delhi?
Very.
Make it into just relics or whatever. We give it to the people to do what they want with it.
You know, so Swapan Dasgupta, very strong. You know, let's give up Rashtrapati Bhavan, make it a public museum. You are a member of parliament. You lived in Lutyens. No, just a minute. Sir, you are a member of parliament. You lived in Lutyens Delhi. Let's all our MPs also give up these lovely colonial bungalows. Y'all live in these colonial bungalows and you want us, the citizens, to observe Kartavya.
Well, you live in a quite a spacious bungalow yourself, right?
But I don't live in Lutyens Delhi. I don't live in Lutyens Delhi at government taxpayers' money. I don't live in Lutyens Delhi at government taxpayers' money.
The point is that people live. The whole point is, let's look upon this as part of a larger continuum. The Navy flag, for instance, was changed a few days ago.
Yes.
It was the George Cross was dropped from there, and it was replaced by an insignia of Chhatrapati Shivaji's Navy. So that's an important step in this. These are all exercises in symbolism, and these questions about what the secretariat is there, the PMO is going to be there, etc., are larger questions of efficiency. If you notice, one of the things which happened in this entire Central Vista is that from next year, when Republic Day is celebrated, we will not have these huge dangling wires, because now we've got permanent underground structures which are now put in place.
That's modernization. Swapan Dasgupta, let us not confuse. Everybody supports the modernization of Central Vista.
Both North Block and South Block are going to be turned into museums, which will enable the entire collection of the National Museum.
I think it's a great idea.
Only about 20 or 30% is now on exhibit, which have now been on display, for the entire exhibits to be actually displayed.
Okay.
So that is, to my mind, also a very positive step, and it more or less coincides. So let's not try and make everything into a very big partisan issue. And I'm sure the Bharat Jodo Andolan is also has its own, event management aspect to it. Fair enough, that's part of political life. And there's I don't want to.
It's been we've had a fascinating debate. We've had a fascinating debate. The last thing we want is to end on a negative note. This is a day when we should, show an element of bipartisanship and ask questions. Asking questions doesn't make us partisan. I think relevant questions have been asked, especially about Rashtrapati Bhavan and all our Raj Bhavans. As General Malik said, they smack of colonial grandeur. You want to decolonize? Make Rashtrapati Bhavan into a public museum, remove the Raj Bhavan, maybe even remove the governor's post. Then you are truly decolonizing in a way and change mindsets. Enough of the VVIP privileges that are Netas. Start with their Kartavya, then we will have ours. But I appreciate my guests joining us in this healthy spirit today on the show. Let me turn from there to another guest who I spoke to a short while ago, the Nehru Center Director and author Amish Tripathi also joins me at this moment. Amish Tripathi, how do you see this transition that the government claims it's shedding colonial legacies for the new? Is that really happening in your view, or is that a bit of an exaggeration?
Rajdeep, I would suggest that we move this debate beyond just the government at a broader level. Nations across the world are debating the merits of decolonization. I'm living in the UK right now, and even out here, the British, the Americans are calling into account some of the crimes of the empire. The statues of slavers are being removed. Decolonization at a broader societal level is a good idea. words have an impact on that as well, which is why people have become a lot more careful with language. So I would suggest we look at it from that perspective, and even more deeply. I think the name that we had in a way represented what was the Western approach to monarchies. It used to be the king's way, which was literally translated to Rajpath. Now, if you read, the Chanakya Niti, the Ramayana, where the philosophies of governance, the Shanti Parva and the Mahabharata, where the traditional Indian philosophies of governance have been put up, never was it suggested that kings or queens have a divine right to rule. In fact, the ruling class was driven more by duty and service. And in that sense, perhaps I would suggest that Kartavya Path encapsulates the thought of our civilizational thought of what the ruling class is supposed to do a little more deeply. Now, of course, those words, I'm not saying that just words are enough. All of us who are privileged within our country have a duty to work towards the betterment of our country. And this can perhaps be, a driver to that.
But Amish Tripathi, with due regards, the fact is that we are a constitutional republic where we, the citizens, have rights. Therefore, the focus, some would argue, should be on rights-based society, not on a duty-based society. And duties actually should become with our netas. You mentioned the Raj. The worry is the British left us. They've been replaced by our new Rajas, our new VVIPs. As citizens of a constitutional republic, surely the first commitment should be to ensure rights are preserved. So rather than call it Kartavya Path, let the netas first fulfill their Kartavya, their duties.
It's a very, very valid question you've raised, Rajdeep. And in fact, these debates one finds are happening in the West as well. And there is always that dichotomy of rights and duties. And how is a society better structured? If it's focused only on rights, and on India, it's more about group rights. In the West, it's more about individual rights. If you have to be focused on rights, I would think individual rights are better. But there is a debate going on that rights have to be balanced by duties as well. We find societies which are too driven by rights, as has regrettably happened in some Western countries. You find societies themselves becoming weaker, because remember, who do you demand rights from? From the state. And if everything has to be done by the state, the natural corollary of that is that the state will be too powerful. What's the way to ensure that the state does not become too powerful? By the society to do many things for itself. And that will come from a sense of community, from a sense of voluntarism, from a sense of duties. I read this wonderful book by Niall Ferguson. I am a patriotic Indian, so you might be surprised that I like Niall Ferguson, who defends the empire. But the way I see it is one should learn interesting thoughts from anyone that one finds it from. And Niall Ferguson speaks of when the West rose, the importance of voluntarism, the importance of a sense of duties, the importance of clubs, how societal strength was a big part of why their nations rose, rather than just leaving everything to the state. And societal strength comes when individuals have a sense of duties as well, not just consciousness of their rights.
The question is whether changing the name to Kartavya Path will ensure that citizens observe their duties. As I said, these are name changes that have taken place over the years. This is an old style politics. Change a name. How will mindsets change is the bigger question. But Amish Tripathi, as always, appreciate your joining me there from the Nehru Centre in London. Let's take a break. On the other side, we'll be talking to Netaji's daughter. Because the fact is that you've got Netaji at the heart of this entire Central Vista. There he is, Anita on the other side.
noticed something new. You started using a new body lotion.
Funny.
So sorry for the delay. I was on another call. It just kept going on.
No, Papa. You were in a steam bath.
Steam bath? At home?
Two steam bath he takes.
Go to your homework.
It's 7:20 already. The kickoff's in 5 minutes. Get all the boys. We have the entire place to ourselves, man. Not working?
Of course it is. But I don't want you guys to be using this bathroom. So use the other one.
I don't read the news. I read between the lines to tell you the true version of events. The true story of our times.
To document grief, the toughest assignment for any journalist to be.
From those who matter.
Women politicians going to stick up for each other.
Of those who should matter. I document the truth. I don't distort the truth. I don't glamorize the truth. I don't gloss over the truth.
The ghosts of India's contentious medieval history have come knocking again.
I hustle for the truth. On the ground, in the newsroom, in the studio. I don't try to grab eyeballs.
I inform you to make you see the point.
To the Point with Preeti Chaudhary. At these times, only on India Today.
Welcome back. Now, at the heart of this central vista that was unveiled today is a statue of Netaji Bose. This will be right under the canopy at India Gate. Now, this is, of course, been yet another contentious issue. Some members of the family saying that perhaps this could have been done on another day when Netaji's birthday is celebrated rather than today. Joining me earlier today was Anita Bose-Pfaff, the Germany-based daughter of Subhash Chandra Bose. Appreciate your joining us, Ms. Pfaff. Netaji's statue at the India Gate. What stirs in your heart seeing this 28-foot tall statue there?
Well, this is a very important location and a very historic location. So the fact that Netaji's statue is being put up at this place is a great honor to him, of course. And I think also very gratifying to replace with some delay his erstwhile enemy, King George V. So I think there is a great meaning in that to accord Netaji that respect, and he will be sort of, as a statue, will be able to watch the important part of the capital of free India.
Absolutely. When we read about Netaji, though, the struggle for independence and how the British were defeated eventually after the war, do you think Netaji's fight in a way has been finally recognized all those years when he brought in the Indian National Army, the INA?
It is being recognized in a very formal and official way, but I think Netaji was in the heart of so many of his countrymen and countrywomen. I never failed to be impressed and touched by the fact that even today so many men and women who have never seen him, have never met him, never been exposed to his magnetism, are still touched by him, and I think that we should also not forget. But of course, this statue will have a specific symbolic meaning also, and I would also, in that connection, want to mention that it is also a credit and a recognition to the Indian National Army, of course. Unfortunately, too few of the veterans are still alive.
Anita Pfaff, appreciate your joining us. Netaji there, that grand statue, but remember, more than even the symbolism of that, the thoughts of Netaji, this remarkable man, need to be truly embraced. Appreciate your joining us. Now, while the centre hails this grand unveiling of the Central Vista Avenue, there's one issue that remains still on the table, the environmental impact. Remember, when this project was conceived, over 400 trees were cut and transplanted, not felled, say the project makers, to make way for the central vista. But has this really worked out? Here is the reality check, with only 30% of the trees that were transplanted having survived. It's tonight's ground report.
When the Central Vista project was conceived, there were concerns about the environmental fallout. This was because hundreds of trees needed to be uprooted to make way for the project. The government's argument was that these trees would be translocated and planted elsewhere. But now it's been proved that the worries raised by experts were not without reason. Very few trees that were transplanted have survived at the NTPC Eco Park in South Delhi. From the Central Vista project alone, more than 400 trees were transported to the Badarpur area on the Delhi-Haryana border. The Forest Department report placed before the Delhi High Court tells the grim story about a transplantation project gone all wrong.
Tree transplantation has been a very challenging process, and the success rate in Delhi is practically zero, or you can call it 30% or whatever. You're just taking chances to kill these beautiful, beautiful trees that are the only natural oxygen towers for citizens right now in the most polluted city in the world, and primarily due to the climatic and soil conditions and the tree species involved and other resource requirements like water that are also in short supply. So there is just many factors that go against the tree transplantation for a city like Delhi.
An India Today team that visited the site saw for itself the results of a botched project.
Forest Research Institute, Dehradun, they have done a study over the transplantation. They have also submitted a report in Delhi High Court, and that report is saying that just 30% of plants are surviving here.
While the revamping of the Central Vista may have been necessary from the government's point of view, the loss of full-grown trees more than 100 years old could perhaps have been avoided had there been more foresight. With Kumar Kunal, Bureau Report, India Today.
Interesting story there. Okay, just about enough time to leave you with our image of the day. Today is one of my favorite days because it is Onam. Unfortunately, none of my Malayali friends invited me this year for Onam Sadhya. I remind them, next year I'm more than happy to do them. But for now, I want to all my Malayali friends in particular wish you a very happy Onam. As all of you welcome King Mahabali. Enjoy Onam festivities. Festive season will slowly be upon us, one festival after the other. Ganesh Chaturthi almost ending. Onam is here. All of you out there, stay well, stay safe. Good night. Shubhratri. Jai Hind. Namaskar.